Hey all, it's KR King of D&D Homebrew, asking the question of whether you or I or we, I suppose, should buy the new 2024 edition of 5e. You know, it's funny, I asked this because I did a poll. I wanted to know, on my channel, hey, what are people thinking out there? And I did that, and it was, at the present time right now, as I'm recording this, it's 75% say no, 25% yes, they're going to buy it, which is interesting. And I got tons of great comments from people about why the majority are not getting the new version. And, I did a video about a year and a half during the OGL thing saying, don't give, Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro any of your money, until they resolve this. And then, of course, I did another one when they resolved it back down, we think. But obviously, a lot of people are still very resentful of the way Wizards of the Coast has been the steward of the 5e brand. And in addition to that, the fact that a lot of them are deciding I want to play something else, another kind of system. And it's funny, too, in terms of, there's a lot of YouTubers out there that say, I would never play, 5th edition, I hate it. But look at what's happening with Wizards of the Coast now, Because, again, it gets a lot of clicks. I don't blame them, but it's just funny. It's like you're obsessed with this person you have no interest in being around or whatever. Because, again, it's the big system out there. Well, when the most people play and you're going to get the most attention, in terms of YouTube, with 5e, even if you're saying, hey, there's all these other systems out there, which, there are, right? And for me, I try to run a system agnostic channel. I'm talking about homebrewing your own world and a sandbox campaign. With the tips I try to give are totally for any kind of system that you have, an RPG system. The thing is, I just finished, after a year and a half, a 5e campaign that I was running. Now I'm switching over. I'm now playing in three different Pathfinder campaigns and running one. So Pathfinder has been my system. And then I'm playing all these other games. I just was playing Alien RPG, the Free League one. I played Top Secret, Apes Victorious, and some others. So I'm trying some other systems. But when you're talking about something, you recognize that a lot of people are going to be playing 5e. That is the system, right? So the one thing is with the corporate greed, and believe me, I'm a child of the 70s, right? In the 80s, where corporations were the worst of the worst, the corporate greed heads, as Hunter S. Thompson used to call them. And, we were obsessed by bands not selling out and, songs like Have a Cigar, right? Welcome to the Machine or something. That's the old Pink Floyd stuff. And, The Clash or famously never would reunite because that'd be selling out and all that kind of stuff. And if you look at an 80s, action movie that corporations are totally evil, or Alien, right? It's the corporate structure, or the later Alien movies, basically the Wayland Corporation is the quasi-government, right? This is a very anti-corporate stance, so it makes sense that they start messing around with our beloved hobby or whatever with their greed. But of course, corporations have owned D&D for a long time. And the other thing that I think about with this is when editions changed, when it went from the box set to first edition, there were people that I played with. We had all this homebrewed rules. We said, we have a perfectly good system, right? And then we played first edition and it had some problems or issues. Or second edition came out. Oh, I'm not playing that. I love first edition. This was an attempt, to get rid of Gary Gygax and all this stuff. But I played that. In fact, I played with a friend of mine. I started a campaign because we had this ridiculously complicated homebrewed system based on the box and first edition. So we wanted to just have a fun campaign. I did Rules Cyclopedia. And because we figured that's the kiddie game, right? Well, there's people now that say that's the greatest system ever. I played it. It's got some issues, but, it was fun. But again, it was just another edition. And people say, the first edition, that's the greatest or whatever. And, second edition and on and on. A lot of 3.5 devotees. And when that came out, it was kind of revolutionary, right? I'll tell you one thing that irked me when it came out 3.0. And then like a year or two later, they had 3.5. I'm like, I got to buy another set of books. What the hell is this? Well, my friends who bought it said it did take care of some issues with things and they streamlined it. So I went out and bought it. But I wasn't pleased, right? I was like, you couldn't play test that? You couldn't figure that out before you printed off a zillion 3.0s, which I've got on my shelf, right? And then I bought 4th edition because it came out. I read it. I wasn't interested in playing it for a variety of reasons. My friends that played didn't. We just said, that's not for us. And then I got out of the hobby for a couple of years, 2013 to 19. Actually, I was starting to get back in like 15, 16, but I'm in Poland, and it's a long story. So when I came back, I bought 5th edition, played it. I had friends from 3.5 who looked at it and said, I'm not playing. They didn't like the advantage, disadvantage, the bounded accuracy. They didn't care for it. They love 3.5. And I'm like, well, I'll play 3.5, but I'm not running that anymore. When I ran it back in like 2000, there was no computer, programs. It was just paper and pencil. It was tough. Later on, there were some programs and stuff. And so the thing about this is, with this new Beyond D&D, it's that 10-year cycle or whatever it is for these editions that they have, where they're ready to create new books for GMs to have to buy, right? And also systems become, after 10 years, people have played them enough that they see the problems with the system and the issues and all this other stuff. So it does make sense at some way to have an updated system. Now, this one, is it updated enough? That's one of my questions, right? Because, okay, let's take the corporate greed thing out of the way and say it's time to get a new system. Because remember, when your software gets upgraded, whether it's some operating system or some thing that you're using, and it gets up, and you're always like, what the heck is this? I love the old system. Why are they changing everything? And now the buttons are moved around. Well, they upgrade systems because they do make improvements, and also the way it looks and everything. You look at systems from the 80s, they look outdated. So they do that on purpose because, yes, to introduce new features, and yes, to get you to buy it, but also just to modernize it. They get old. And I've been playing these older systems, and they look that way. Charts all over the place, and can't find stuff and whatever. It's a system from that era. It's not a modern system. So I can understand that, even though I can understand the corporate greed thing. The other thing, of course, is, have they made enough changes to deserve? 4th edition, whatever you think about it, that was a big change. That was different. You were like, that's a new system, right? Is this going to be one? We all know there are. First of all, we know there are, I know a bunch of systems, I'm not going to talk about them here, but where they came out with a new edition and it was not good. So you could have that. But other ones where they came out with a new edition, you're like, what did they change? They just reformatted it? Money grab, right? So is the Wizards of the Coast thing going to be different enough to justify it? Now, there's YouTube videos all over the place. There's people with all sorts of, advanced copies. They're not giving me one, right? Well, I'm sort of like, I'm going to have to buy that to really know if it's changed enough. And you could say, well, I know 5th edition enough. I don't play that, so why would I play this? But again, I did play it for a year and a half. I ran it for a campaign for a year and a half and played it for 5. So, I know it pretty good, and I want to see what the changes are. And if I have a YouTube channel, even if it's system agnostic, I'm thinking, well, maybe I should know what the new, 5th edition 2024 is all about, just to talk about it. Maybe not. Maybe it doesn't matter. And the other element is, should you be spending your money on independent games, right? On Kickstarters, on people doing stuff differently, right? Instead of back to the corporate giants. And I get that. But I got a shelf full of those games I don't play, right? Whereas I can find players for 5th edition, and I'm finding them for Pathfinder. It's a little harder to find all those. I bought them. And the other element, of course, as a collector of editions, I've got all the editions of D&D. The new one comes out. Part of me as a collector is to be a completist and to have the new version, despite my aversion for it, right? So I might get it just to do that, to have a complete collection. So again, all these things go into this, and this is where the fact that we're talking this way is what's irritating to me. The fact that we have this legacy, people like me that started with this 50 years ago, that has played every edition. I never played 4th, but, I played a lot of D&D. And the fact that all these people that have invested all this time and this money, and they have this rollout, they have this change that's, you feel like is clearly motivated by people that don't know anything about the hobby, don't know anything about the game systems. Because we have a wide variety of people now that are playing this game, and yet the people that are running this don't seem to quite be aware of that. I know the designers and stuff, but so I guess that's what is so irritating about this. Why can't this be a celebration of a new edition? Why can't this be something where the people that have invested, most of their lives into this game shouldn't feel like, I got to buy that book. I got to deal with these corporate acts. I got to deal with these corporate you-know-whats. Man, it kind of sucks. It's like, I don't know. It just makes me mad. And yet I'm going to go out and I'm going to potentially spend $150 or whatever it's going to be to buy these books. because I want to put them on my shelf. I want to read them. I want to see what it's all about. I'm not a person, I got to play a game to really review it or know anything about it. I got to see what this is. So it's sad that these guys have screwed up something that we all love so much. So here's what I'm going to say. Whatever you choose, whether or not you say, I'm never playing 5e or buying any more Wizards of the Coast stuff, or you say, hey, I'm going to buy it and see what it's like. Think about the fun that you're having playing an RPG, whichever system that you're playing with you and your friends, whether it's around a table or online, and creating your own world and watching it unfold with people, or playing a one shot and just having a laugh because it's not that serious of a thing, but we're all enjoying this hobby. That's the thing to remember about all this. And yeah, they screwed it up, these corporate guys, but whatever. It's our hobby. It's everyone's hobby, right? That's what's so great about all the different people that are in this game and that have come into this game. And by the way, that's what's great about D&D, because it is the thing, the tide that has lifted all boats and made this world possible for all these great systems, which again, I'm going to buy the MCDM, I'm buying DC-20, and there's these other systems, the Shadow Darks and all these systems out there and they may just sit on my shelf, but the idea of having them and of being part of this community is just great. And that's where my final line always comes from, because I'm always so excited to say, play whatever RPG game you choose and tell somebody else about it.